Treatment denied. Insufficient funds. Final notice. Lee Ha-eun stared at the text message until the words blurred. The break room's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, indifferent to the fact that his grandmother had 72 hours left before the hospital stopped her experimental cancer treatment. 72 hours to find 15 million won. He pressed his palms against his eyes. 3 jobs. Morning shift at the convenience store, afternoon intern work at Kong Pharmaceuticals, evening tutoring sessions. All of it still wasn't enough. You look like death. Ha-eun looked up to find Min Seo, the only other late-night intern, leaning against the doorframe. She had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and always smelled like jasmine tea. Just tired, Ha-eun said. Liar. Min Seo sat across from him, sliding a convenience store sandwich his way. You've been losing weight. When's the last time you ate? Ha-eun couldn't remember. Yesterday? Try 3 days ago. I've been watching. She tapped the sandwich. Eat. You're no good to your grandmother dead. The kindness cracked something inside him. Ha-eun picked up the sandwich with shaking hands. Before I tell you what happened, subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers. And tell me where you're watching from. The next morning, Ha-eun carried coffee into the executive boardroom on 2 hours of sleep. His hands trembled as he set cups in front of each board member. Old men in expensive suits who barely glanced at him. Then he reached the head of the table. Kang Seo-jun sat perfectly still, reviewing documents with the focus of a surgeon. Dark hair swept back, sharp jawline, eyes the color of winter fog. Ha-eun had been working here for 3 months and had never been this close to the CEO. The rumors painted him as ruthless. A pharmaceutical empire built on brilliant patents and whispered connections to Seoul's underground. Men twice his age feared him. Ha-eun set the cup down carefully. His vision swam. Exhaustion made his grip slip. Scalding coffee splashed across Seo-jun's custom suit, the white shirt beneath turning translucent. The room went silent. Ha-eun's heart stopped. I'm so sorry, Seo-jun looked up. Their eyes met. The migraine that had been drilling into Seo-jun's skull for 6 days vanished. Just gone. He breathed in and caught something beneath the coffee's bitterness. Honey and rain, delicate and impossibly soothing. Everyone out, Seo-jun said quietly. The board members fled. Ha-eun stood frozen, waiting for execution. Seo-jun stood, removing his ruined jacket. Your name? Lee Ha-eun. His voice barely worked. How long have you worked here? 3 months. Sir, I'll pay for the suit, Be quiet. Seo-jun studied him with unnerving intensity. You're the new intern. Marketing department. Ha-eun nodded, confused why this mattered. Seo-jun moved closer. Ha-eun's pulse spiked, but not from fear. The CEO's presence felt magnetic, almost gravitational. Do you have plans tonight? Seo-jun asked. I know. Good. My driver will take you home at 6. Pack overnight essentials. Ha-eun's mind raced. I don't understand. You will. Seo-jun returned to his documents as if Ha-eun had already disappeared. Don't be late. Ha-eun spent the day in terrified confusion. Min Seo cornered him during lunch. Why does the CEO's secretary keep looking at you? She whispered. I have no idea. Did you do something illegal? Are you being fired? I spilled coffee on him. Min Seo's eyes widened. And you're still alive? At precisely 6 p.m., a black Mercedes waited outside. The driver, a stone-faced man named Tae-min, opened the door without speaking. Ha-eun climbed in, clutching his backpack. They drove through Seoul's glittering heart to an area Ha-eun had only seen in magazines, where penthouses cost more than most people earned in lifetimes. The elevator required a key card. They rose 43 floors in silence. The penthouse doors opened to reveal floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture in blacks and grays, and Kang Seo-jun standing by the window with a glass of whiskey. Sit, Seo-jun said. Ha-eun perched on the edge of a leather sofa that probably cost more than his grandmother's treatment. Seo-jun didn't sit. I'm going to make you an offer. You're going to accept it. Ha-eun's throat tightened. What kind of offer? I have a medical condition. Chronic insomnia and migraines. I've tried every treatment, every specialist. Seo-jun's jaw tightened. Nothing works. I'm sorry, but I don't see how. Today, when you spilled that coffee, I noticed something. Seo-jun turned to face him. For the first time in months, my migraine stopped. Completely. Ha-eun blinked. That's coincidence? I don't believe in coincidence. Seo-jun set his glass down. I believe in biology. Your scent does something to my neurochemistry. Heat flooded Ha-eun's face. His suppressants were supposed to eliminate any detectable scent. He'd been taking double doses for years to hide his omega status. I need you here, Seo-jun continued. Every night. You'll sleep in the guest room. Non-sexual. Non-negotiable. In exchange, I'll pay you 5 million won per week. Haun's calculator brain short-circuited. 5 million won. 3 weeks would cover his grandmother's treatment and 6 months of living expenses. Why would you pay that much just for? Because I haven't slept properly in 8 months. Seo-jun's voice held an edge of desperation he quickly buried. Because every pharmaceutical solution I've developed has failed. Because you're the only thing that's worked. Haun should have said no. Should have run. But his grandmother's face flashed in his mind, frail, growing frilier. 2 weeks, Haun heard himself say. Trial period. If it doesn't work, we stop. Agreed. Seo-jun showed him to a guest room larger than Haun's entire apartment. Luxury bedding, private bathroom. A view that made Seoul look like a scattered jewel box. Sleep well, Seo-jun said and closed the door. Haun sat on the bed, heart pounding. What had he just agreed to? The first night, Haun barely slept. Every sound made him flinch. But in the morning, Seo-jun looked different. Rested, the shadows under his eyes lighter. It worked, Seo-jun said over breakfast that appeared courtesy of an invisible staff. How do you feel? Confused, Haun admitted. That makes 2 of us. Seo-jun slid an envelope across the table. First week's payment. In advance. Haun opened it. 5 million won in certified bank notes. His hands shook as he texted the hospital. The second night felt easier. Haun explored the penthouse while Seo-jun worked in his office. Artwork that belonged in museums, a library with first editions, a kitchen that had probably never been used. Around midnight, Haun returned to his room. At 2 a.m., he woke to use the bathroom. In the hallway, he froze. Seo-jun stood outside Haun's door. Just standing there. Eyes closed, breathing slowly. Haun's heart hammered. He should have been terrified. Instead, he felt something else. Something that made his suppressant-dulled instincts stir. Seo-jun's eyes opened. They stared at each other in the darkness. I didn't mean to wake you, Seo-jun said quietly. You didn't. Haun gestured helplessly toward the bathroom. Seo-jun stepped back. Sleep well. He disappeared into his own room, leaving Haun standing in the hallway, pulse racing for reasons he didn't want to examine. By the 4th night, Haun had established a routine. Work during the day, return to the penthouse by 8, eat dinner in comfortable silence while Seo-jun reviewed documents, then retreat to separate rooms. Except Seo-jun kept appearing. In the kitchen when Haun made tea. In the library when Haun tried to read. Always maintaining careful distance, but always there. Do I make you uncomfortable? Seo-jun asked one evening. They sat on opposite ends of the massive sofa, city lights painting them in blues and golds. No, Haun said honestly. Should you? Most people are afraid of me. I've noticed. Haun tucked his legs under him. Why is that? Seo-jun's smile held no warmth. Because I'm very good at my job. And my job sometimes requires fear. The pharmaceutical business? Among other things. Haun knew he should leave it alone. Instead, what other things? Seo-jun studied him for a long moment. Are you always this brave or this foolish? Probably foolish. Something shifted in Seo-jun's expression, almost like amusement. You're different from what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more intimidated. Haun laughed, surprising himself. I'm terrified. I'm just good at hiding it. So am I, Seo-jun said quietly. The confession hung between them, intimate and unexpected. That night, the storm hit. Haun woke to thunder shaking the windows. Rain lashed the glass in sheets, turning Seoul into a watercolor blur. He felt strange, feverish, his skin too tight. Then he realized his suppressants. He'd forgotten to take his evening dose. Panic spiked through him as his body's natural chemistry began to surface. The scent suppressants required religious consistency. Missing even one dose could trigger. Heat flooded his system. His pheromones, locked down for years, exploded outward. The guest room door slammed open. Seo-jun stood in the doorway, eyes black, pupils blown wide. His careful control shattered. Haun, he growled, voice barely human. Haun pressed back against the headboard, instinct and want warring inside him. I forgot my suppressants. I can smell you. Seo-jun gripped the doorframe, knuckles white. I need to leave. Now. It hurts, Haun gasped. The heat clawed through him, merciless. Please, don't ask me to stay. Seo-jun's voice cracked. You don't know what you're asking. But Haun's biology knew exactly what it needed. His body had been designed for this. For Seo-jun specifically, though neither of them understood why yet. Don't leave me, Haun whispered. Seo-jun's control snapped. He crossed the room in 3 strides. Tell me to stop. Seo-jun's voice was gravel and desperation, his hands gripping Haun's shoulders as thunder shook the penthouse. Rain hammered the windows like bullets. Haun couldn't breathe. The heat consumed him, his body's chemistry no longer suppressed, pheromones flooding the space between them. Every nerve ending screamed for contact. I can't, Haun gasped. It hurts too much. Seo-jun's eyes were black, pupils swallowing the gray. His alpha instincts clawed at his careful control, 6 years of loneliness and isolation cracking apart. You don't understand what you're asking. Seo-jun's fingers trembled against Haun's skin. I won't be gentle. I can't. I don't want gentle. Haun pulled him closer, fever making him bold. I need you to make it stop. The last thread of Seo-jun's restraint snapped. He kissed Haun like drowning, like Haun was oxygen and Seo-jun had been suffocating for years. Haun's suppressant dulled senses exploded into full awareness. Seo-jun's scent like winter pine and smoke, the strength in his hands, the desperate sound he made when Haun kissed back. Are you sure? Seo-jun breathed against his mouth. Yes. Haun's hands fisted in Seo-jun's shirt. Please. What followed wasn't soft. Seo-jun's alpha biology roared to life after years of believing himself broken, sterile, incapable. Haun's omega nature responded with matching intensity, his body recognizing Seo-jun as something essential. Seo-jun stripped away Haun's barriers with shaking hands. Look at me, he commanded softly. Haun met his eyes and saw something beyond instinct. Longing. Fear. A hunger that went deeper than biology. I've got you, Seo-jun whispered, and the tenderness in his voice broke something in Haun's chest. The storm raged outside. Inside, 2 people who believed themselves incomplete found a completeness neither expected. Seo-jun held Haun like something precious while simultaneously losing control. Haun surrendered while claiming power in his surrender. The heat's pain transformed into something else. Connection, recognition, a biological imperative neither understood. Don't let go, Haun breathed. Never, Seo-jun promised. Hours blurred. The fever peaked and broke. Seo-jun's careful control shattered and reformed around Haun's presence. Haun's body, designed for this without his knowledge, accepted Seo-jun completely. No protection. Seo-jun believed himself sterile. The doctors had been certain. 6 years of testing, specialists confirming the poison had destroyed his fertility. When the heat finally released Haun, exhaustion dragged him under. Seo-jun held him through the aftershocks, pressing kisses to his temple, whispering words Haun couldn't quite hear. Haun fell asleep feeling safe for the first time in months. He didn't see Seo-jun's expression shift as reality returned. Pleasure morphing into panic, connection dissolving into fear. Haun woke to cold sheets and colder silence. Pale dawn light filtered through the windows. His body ached in new ways, marked by Seo-jun's intensity. But the bed beside him was empty. He sat up slowly, pulling the sheets around himself. On the nightstand sat a neat stack of bills, 5 million won in cash, and a handwritten note on expensive cardstock. Contract fulfilled. This covers the rest. Haun stared at the money until his vision blurred. The door opened. Seo-jun entered, fully dressed in a fresh suit, expression carved from ice. The man who had whispered promises hours ago had vanished, replaced by the ruthless CEO Sol feared. You're awake. Seo-jun's voice held no warmth. Taemin will drive you home. Haun couldn't speak. His throat closed around words that wouldn't form. The money covers your grandmother's treatment, and then some. Seo-jun wouldn't meet his eyes. Consider our arrangement concluded. That's it. Haun's voice cracked. That's all this was? What did you expect? Seo-jun's tone was brutal in its precision. You needed money. I needed sleep. We both got what we wanted. The words cut deeper than any physical pain. Haun had felt Seo-jun's desperation, heard his promises. Had it all been the heat? Biology mimicking emotion? Look at me, Haun demanded. Seo-jun finally met his gaze. His eyes were empty, carefully controlled. Haun understood then. Seo-jun was terrified. Last night had shattered something in him, and this coldness was defense, not truth. But Haun was too hurt to push past the walls. Fine. Haun stood, wrapping the sheet around himself with as much dignity as he could salvage. Thank you for the transaction. Something flickered in Seo-jun's expression, regret, maybe, but it vanished too quickly to catch. Haun dressed in silence. His clothes from yesterday felt wrong, tainted by hope he'd been foolish enough to feel. Taemin waited by the elevator, stone-faced and silent as always. Haun didn't look back as the doors closed. 3 weeks crawled past. Haun threw himself into work with manic focus. His grandmother's treatment resumed. The hospital called to confirm a substantial anonymous donation that covered everything. Haun knew exactly who'd made that donation. It made everything worse. Min Seo noticed the change immediately. "You look haunted," she said during their lunch break. "What happened?" "Nothing." Haun pushed rice around his plate without eating. "I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar." Min Seo leaned closer. "Does this have something to do with why the CEO stares at you during board meetings?" Haun's head snapped up. "What? You haven't noticed?" Min Seo raised an eyebrow. "Last week's presentation, he spent more time looking at you than the slides. It's creepy." Haun had been avoiding board meetings. Avoiding anywhere Seo Jun might be. The few times they'd crossed paths, Seo Jun had looked straight through him as if Haun didn't exist. It hurt more each time. Would you risk everything for love? Subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers, and comment where you're watching from. Week 4 brought new symptoms. Haun woke dizzy, nauseous, his sense of smell suddenly hypersensitive. The office coffee he'd loved now made him gag. His body felt strange, chemistry shifting in ways his suppressants couldn't control. He ignored it. Stress, probably. Heartbreak manifesting physically. Then came the fainting. Haun was filing reports in the marketing department when the room tilted. Min Seo's concerned face swam in his vision, and then everything went black. He woke in the company medical office, the nurse taking his blood pressure with a worried frown. "Your vitals are unstable," she said. "When did you last eat?" "This morning." Haun tried to sit up. The room spun. "I'm calling you a cab. Go to a proper clinic." The nurse helped him to his feet. "And eat something, for heaven's sake." Min Seo insisted on accompanying him. Haun was too dizzy to argue. The clinic was small, discreet, tucked into a neighborhood that asked few questions. The doctor was middle-aged, kind-eyed, and looked unsurprised when Haun admitted he was an omega on suppressants. "How long have you been taking them?" the doctor asked. 8 years. Since I presented. "Any lapses in dosage?" Haun's face heated. "One. About a month ago." The doctor made notes. "Any sexual activity during that lapse?" Haun wanted to disappear. "Yes." "Protection used?" "No." His voice was barely audible. "He's sterile. Medical condition." The doctor's expression shifted, something between sympathy and concern. "I'd like to run some tests." 20 minutes later, Haun sat in the examination room alone. Min Seo had stepped out to take a call. The doctor returned with a tablet and an expression that made Haun's stomach drop. "Mr. Lee," the doctor said gently, "when you say your partner is sterile, was this confirmed by recent testing?" "Years ago. Poison exposure. Multiple specialists confirmed it." The doctor pulled up Haun's test results. "I need you to understand something about omega biology. We're adaptive. Our reproductive systems can form unique compatibility with specific alpha genetics." Haun's hands went cold. "What are you saying?" "Your hormone levels are extremely elevated. Beta-HCG specifically." The doctor turned the tablet toward him. "You're pregnant, Mr. Lee. Approximately 4 weeks along." The world stopped. "That's impossible," Haun whispered. "He can't," the doctors said. "Apparently his body could. With you specifically." The doctor's voice was kind but firm. "This level of compatibility is rare. Maybe 1 in 50 million. Your genetics formed a match his system recognized as viable." Haun couldn't breathe. No, this can't. The test is definitive. I'd recommend an ultrasound to confirm, but the hormone levels don't lie." Haun's mind raced. Seo Jun believed he was sterile. If Haun showed up pregnant, Seo Jun would assume betrayal, assume another man, assume. "Does anyone else know?" Haun asked desperately. "Just you and me. Doctor-patient confidentiality." The doctor's expression turned serious. "But you need to decide quickly. If you plan to terminate." "No." The word escaped before Haun could think. His hand moved instinctively to his still flat stomach. "I'm keeping it." "Then you need to tell the father." Haun laughed, hollow and breaking. "He paid me 5 million won and told me our contract was concluded. He thinks I was a transaction." The doctor's eyes filled with understanding. "These situations are complicated. He's dangerous." Haun's voice shook. "Powerful. Connected. If he thinks I'm lying about the baby being his, or trying to trap him." He didn't finish. The implications were too terrifying. "What will you do?" the doctor asked quietly. Haun looked at the test results, at the numbers that confirmed the impossible. "I don't know," he whispered. But even as he said it, a plan was forming. A desperate, terrible plan. He would disappear. Take the money Seo Jun had left him and vanish. Fake a family emergency, delete his contacts, become invisible. Seo Jun would never know. Never search for a transaction he'd already paid for. And Haun would raise this impossible child alone, keeping the secret that could destroy them both. That night, Haun sat in his tiny apartment, staring at resignation letter drafts. His hand rested on his stomach. Something precious and terrifying was growing there. A miracle that science said shouldn't exist. A child with Seo Jun's gray eyes. A child that would prove the sterile king could have an heir. But Seo Jun had made his choice. He'd left cash on the nightstand and erased Haun from his life. Haun wouldn't give him the chance to choose again. He finalized the resignation. Asterisk family emergency in Busan. Effective immediately. Thank you for the opportunity. Asterisk. Simple. Clean. Untraceable. Minesio called 3 times. Haun didn't answer. By dawn, Haun had purchased a bus ticket south under a fake name, withdrawn Seo Jun's cash from 3 different ATMs, and deleted every trace of his digital presence. He pressed a hand to his stomach one more time. Just us, he whispered to the child who didn't exist in any medical text. I'll protect you. I promise. The bus left at sunrise. Haun didn't look back at Seoul's skyline, didn't let himself imagine Seo Jun's face when he discovered Haun was gone. He'd made his choice. Now he had to live with it. He's gone. Seo Jun stared at his head of security, the words not registering. Behind his desk, Seoul's morning light felt too bright, too sharp. What do you mean gone? Seo Jun's voice was dangerously quiet. Jae Sung, a former Special Forces operative who'd seen Seo Jun dismantle empires without blinking, looked uncomfortable. Lee Ha-eun submitted his resignation 4 days ago. Family emergency in Busan. HR processed it immediately. 4 days ago. Seo Jun's hands tightened on the desk edge. And you're telling me now? You said to stop monitoring him. Jae Sung pulled up security footage on his tablet. Your exact words were, forget he exists. Seo Jun had said that 3 weeks ago, when seeing Ha-eun in the hallways became unbearable, when the scent of honey and rain haunted every corner of his penthouse. Find him, Seo Jun said. Sir. Now. Jae Sung left quickly. Seo Jun stood alone in his office, the migraine he'd kept at bay for weeks slamming back with vicious intensity. He'd told himself the distance was necessary, that treating Ha-eun like a transaction was kinder than admitting the truth, that one night had shattered 6 years of careful control, that Seo Jun wanted things he had no right to want. Better to let Ha-eun go cleanly than destroy him slowly. Except Ha-eun had left first. Seo Jun pressed his fingers against his temples, but the pain only worsened. His body recognized Ha-eun's absence like a wound, chemistry screaming for something it couldn't have. He'd made the right choice. The safe choice. So why did it feel like dying? The search consumed him. Jae Sung reported back within hours. No family emergency in Busan. No Lee Ha-eun registered at any hospital or hotel. His grandmother is still in Seoul, treatment ongoing thanks to your donation. He lied. Seo Jun's jaw tightened. Why would he lie? Sir, with respect, you paid him like a prostitute and disappeared. Maybe he didn't want to be found. The words landed like bullets. Seo Jun had done exactly that, convinced himself it was protection when it was really cowardice. Expand the search. Every city, every province. That will take resources. I don't care. Seo Jun's voice cracked with something desperate. Find him. Weeks became months. Seo Jun watched security footage on repeat. Ha-eun laughing with Min Seo, Ha-eun filing reports, Ha-eun's small smile when he thought no one was watching. The migraines returned with vengeance. Seo Jun stopped sleeping. His board of directors noticed the change. Sharper edges, colder decisions, ruthlessness without the thin veneer of civility he'd maintained. Seoul's underground whispered about Kang Seo Jun's descent. Deals closed with brutal efficiency. Enemies disappeared. The pharmaceutical king became something darker. At night, alone in his penthouse, Seo Jun stood outside the guest room where Ha-eun had slept. The sheets had been changed, the scent scrubbed away, but memory remained. Don't let go. Never. He'd broken that promise in the cruelest way possible. 6 months into the search, Jae Sung delivered the final report. He's gone, sir. Either he's dead or he's using a false identity, so sophisticated our network can't crack it. Jae Sung's expression held rare sympathy. I'm sorry. Seo Jun stared at the file of dead ends, his chest hollow. Stop the search, he heard himself say. Sir? He made his choice. Seo Jun closed the file with mechanical precision. Respect it. That night, Seo-jun stood at his penthouse windows and let himself feel it. The loss, the regret, the terrible understanding that he'd destroyed the only good thing in his life because he was too afraid to claim it. The city glittered below, indifferent to one man's grief. Seo-jun accepted what he'd known all along. He was meant to be alone. 300 kilometers south, Haun woke to tiny kicks against his ribs. 6 months pregnant, living in a cramped Daegu apartment under the name Park Ji-woo, working remote translation jobs that asked no questions. His grandmother believed he'd taken a position abroad. Min Seo had stopped calling after Haun changed his number. Seoul felt like another lifetime. Haun pressed a hand to his swollen belly, feeling the impossible child move. "You're strong," he whispered. Just like him. The pregnancy had been difficult. Morning sickness that lasted all day, exhaustion that made simple tasks monumental, strange cravings that made no biological sense. But every ultrasound showed the same thing. A healthy baby, developing perfectly, defying every medical assumption about omega male pregnancies. The obstetrician, a discreet specialist who handled complicated cases, had been fascinated. "Your body adapted completely," Dr. Yoon had explained during month 4. "Usually omega male pregnancies are high risk, but your chemistry recalibrated specifically for this child. It's like your biology knew exactly what was needed." Because Haun's body had been designed for Seo-jun. 1 in 50 million compatibility. The thought made Haun's chest ache. He wondered sometimes if Seo-jun had searched. If discovering Haun's disappearance had caused even a flicker of concern. Probably not. The transaction was complete. Why would Seo-jun care about discarded goods? Haun forced the thoughts away. He had to focus on survival, his and the baby's. Would you forgive someone who mistook your pain for love? Comment below. Minho was born on a winter morning, screaming with impressive lungs and gripping Haun's finger with surprising strength. Gray eyes. Unmistakably gray. Haun held his son and wept with joy and terror. Every feature was a reminder. Seo-jun's sharp jawline softened by youth, Haun's gentle mouth, but those eyes were pure Kong Seo-jun. "Hello, little one," Haun whispered. "Your papa's got you." Dr. Yoon smiled from the doorway. "He's perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, absolutely healthy." "Thank you." Haun couldn't look away from his son's face. "For everything. What will you name him?" Haun had chosen carefully. Minho. Brave and strong. The name felt like armor. Protection against a world that wouldn't understand how this child existed. 3 years later. "Papa, why can't I have ice cream for breakfast?" Haun looked up from his laptop to find Minho, 3 years old and already too clever, standing in their small kitchen with his arms crossed in a perfect imitation of authority. "Because you'll get a stomach ache," Haun said patiently. "I won't. I'm very strong." Minho flexed his tiny arms. Haun hid his smile. His son had inherited more than just gray eyes. The stubborn confidence, the way he tilted his head when thinking, even the habit of tapping his fingers when frustrated. Every day, Minho looked more like Seo-jun. "Cereal first," Haun negotiated. "Then maybe ice cream after dinner." Minho considered this with the seriousness of a business mogul reviewing contracts. Deal. They'd built a life in Daegu. Small but stable. Haun worked remotely as a translator, enough to keep them comfortable but not enough to attract attention. Minho attended a local kindergarten where the teachers praised his intelligence and worried about his tendency to defend smaller children from bullies. "He has a strong sense of justice," the head teacher had said during the last parent conference. "Sometimes too strong. Yesterday, he made a boy twice his size apologize for stealing another child's toy." Haun had felt pride and fear in equal measure. Minho asked about his other papa constantly. "When is he coming home?" Minho would ask, gray eyes wide with hope. "Soon," Haun would lie, hating himself. "He's on a very long business trip." "Does he know about me?" The question always broke Haun's heart. "Of course he does. He loves you very much." More lies. But how could Haun explain the truth? That his other papa didn't know he existed, had paid Haun like a transaction, believed himself sterile and alone? Some nights, Haun searched Seo-jun's name online. News articles about pharmaceutical breakthroughs, blurry paparazzi photos of the reclusive CEO, business reports analyzing Kong Pharmaceuticals' aggressive expansion. Seo-jun looked colder in recent photos. Harder. The shadows under his eyes had returned. Haun told himself it wasn't his concern. Seo-jun had made his choice. But guilt gnawed at him. Seo-jun had a son, a miracle that shouldn't exist, and didn't know. "Papa, you're sad again." Minho climbed into Haun's lap, small hands cupping his face. "Don't be sad." "I'm not sad, baby. Just thinking. About my other papa? Haun's throat tightened. How did you know? You always look sad when you think about him. Minho's expression was far too knowing for 3 years old. I look like him, don't I? Yes, Haun whispered. You look just like him. Is that why you cry sometimes? Haun pulled his son close, breathing in his scent, milk and honey, innocence and impossible genetics. I love you so much, Haun said instead of answering. I love you too, Papa. Minho settled against his chest. Even when you're sad. The call came during Minho's afternoon kindergarten session. Mr. Park, the kindergarten director's voice was excited. I have wonderful news. Kong Pharmaceuticals has acquired our facility as part of their community outreach program. They're sending their CEO personally to inspect the improvements next week. Haun's blood went cold. Their CEO? Kong Seojun himself. Can you believe it? The children are so excited. Haun barely heard the rest. His hands shook as he ended the call. Seojun. Here. In 1 week. 3 years of hiding, 3 years of building a safe life for Minho, about to collapse because of a corporate PR move. Haun had 1 week to decide. Run again, or face the man who didn't know he'd fathered a miracle. The day arrived too quickly. Haun stood at the kindergarten's edge, watching black cars pull up. Security swept the building first. Then Seojun emerged, devastating in a charcoal suit, looking exactly like Haun's memories except colder. Harder. Haun's heart hammered. He should leave, should grab Minho and run. A commotion in the playground stopped him. Minho stood between 2 larger boys and a smaller girl, his tiny body radiating authority. Leave her alone, Minho demanded, gray eyes flashing. The bullies laughed. What are you going to do about it? Minho's expression shifted into something eerily familiar. The exact look Seojun wore when destroying business rivals. Cold. Calculating. Terrifying in miniature. I'm going to tell everyone you're cowards who pick on people smaller than you. Minho's voice carried. And cowards are pathetic. The boys ran. Haun watched Seojun freeze mid-step. His security team moved forward, but Seojun raised a hand, stopping them. He walked slowly toward the child standing alone in the playground, sunlight catching gray eyes that were unmistakably, impossibly his own. Minho noticed the approaching stranger and didn't flinch. He'd inherited that too, fearlessness in the face of power. Seojun knelt to the child's eye level, studying Minho's face with an expression Haun couldn't read from this distance. That was brave, Seojun said quietly. Bullies are bad, Minho stated matter-of-factly. Papa says you always protect people who can't protect themselves. Your papa sounds wise. What's your name? Minho. The child tilted his head, studying Seojun with equal intensity. You look important. Are you a gangster? Seojun's lips twitched, almost a smile. Why would you think that? You have an expensive watch. Papa says gangsters and businessmen both wear expensive watches, but gangsters are more honest about being scary. Have you ever kept a secret that could change everything? Share your story in the comments. Something shifted in Seojun's expression. Recognition without understanding. His eyes traced Minho's features, the jawline, the eyes, the confident stance. How old are you, Minho? 3. My birthday was in winter. Seojun went very still. Where's your papa? Working. He's always working. Minho's voice held a child's loneliness. I have another papa too, but he's on a long trip. Seojun's hand shook as he reached out, then stopped. What does your papa do? Translates. He talks in lots of languages on his computer. The puzzle pieces clicked together in Seojun's mind. Haun had been trilingual, studied linguistics before financial desperation forced him into menial work. 3 years old. Winter birthday. Gray eyes. Translation work. Impossible. Seojun's world tilted. Minho. Haun's voice cut through the playground noise, breathless and terrified. Both turned. Seojun's eyes locked onto Haun across 30 feet of playground gravel. Time stopped. Haun stood frozen, one hand outstretched toward his son, face pale with fear and recognition. Seojun rose slowly, his gaze moving between Haun and the child with gray eyes who shouldn't exist. Papa! Minho ran to Haun, grabbing his hand. I made a new friend. He's very tall. Seojun walked toward them with predatory focus. His security team hung back, sensing something beyond their pay grade. Haun, Seojun said. His voice was carefully controlled, but his hands shook. It's been a long time. Seojun. Haun's voice cracked. He pulled Minho closer. Seojun's eyes dropped to the child, to the impossible gray eyes staring back at him with innocent curiosity. Is he mine? Seojun asked quietly. The question hung between them, 3 years of secrets about to shatter. Is he mine? The question hung in the playground air, children's laughter distant and surreal. Haun's grip on Minho's hand tightened until the child squirmed. Papa, you're hurting me, Minho whispered. Haun released him immediately, his heart hammering against his ribs. Seo-jun stood 3 feet away, gray eyes identical to the child between them, expression carved from ice and desperation. No, the lie tasted like poison. He's not yours. Seo-jun flinched as if struck. You're lying. You said you were sterile. Haun's voice shook. Remember? Medical fact. Multiple specialists. Then whose? Seo-jun's jaw clenched. Who is his father? Someone who wanted him. The words came out sharper than intended. Someone who didn't pay me like a prostitute and disappear. Minho's eyes widened. He looked between his papa and the tall stranger with growing confusion. Seo-jun took a step forward. His security team tensed, but he waved them back. Haun, look at him. Look at his eyes. Lots of people have gray eyes. Not like mine. Not that exact shade. Seo-jun's voice dropped dangerously low. When's his birthday? Haun's silence was answer enough. 3 years ago. Winter. Seo-jun did the math instantly. 9 months after you disappeared. After that night. Coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. Seo-jun crouched to Minho's level again, studying every feature with the focus of a man cataloging evidence. Minho, do you have any allergies? The child nodded seriously. Milk makes my tummy hurt. Papa gives me special milk instead. Seo-jun's face went white. Lactose intolerance, rare in Korean children, but Seo-jun had suffered from it his entire life. What else? Seo-jun's voice was barely controlled. I tap my fingers when I'm thinking. Minho demonstrated, his small fingers drumming against his thigh in the exact pattern Seo-jun used during negotiations. Papa says it's my concentration habit. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers, and tell me where you're watching from. Haun grabbed Minho's hand. We're leaving. No. Seo-jun stood, blocking their path. You're not. You can't stop me. Can I? Seo-jun's expression shifted into something dangerous. Jae-sung. His head of security materialized. Sir? The car. Now. Seo-jun, don't. Haun's protest died as 2 more security personnel flanked them. Not threatening, but unmistakably present. You disappeared for 3 years. Seo-jun's voice was cold fury barely leashed. Hit a child who might be mine. You owe me answers. I owe you nothing. Haun's fear transformed into rage. You made your choice. Cash on the nightstand, remember? Minho started crying. The adult's tension had finally broken through his brave facade. Papa, I'm scared, he sobbed. Haun scooped him up immediately, glaring at Seo-jun over his son's head. Look what you're doing. He's terrified. Something cracked in Seo-jun's expression. He stepped back, raising his hands in surrender. I'm sorry. Minho, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. The child peeked out from Haun's shoulder, tears streaming down his face. Are you going to hurt my papa? No. Seo-jun's voice gentled in a way Haun had only heard once before, that night when everything changed. Never. I just need to talk to him. About what? About whether we're family. Minho's tears slowed. Like, you're my other papa? The one on the business trip? The question shattered something in Seo-jun's careful control. Haun saw it happen. The realization crashing through denial, the terrible understanding that this child had been waiting for him. Maybe, Seo-jun whispered. If your papa will let me find out. Haun closed his eyes. The game was over. 3 years of hiding, ended by a corporate PR visit and genetic coincidence that wasn't coincidence at all. Fine. Haun's voice was hollow. 1 conversation. Then we leave. My penthouse. Privacy. Absolutely not. Then my car. 10 minutes. Seo-jun's tone left no room for negotiation. You can walk away after. I promise. Haun knew Seo-jun's promises were worthless. But Minho had stopped crying, and curious hope had replaced fear in his gray eyes. 10 minutes, Haun agreed. The car was obscenely luxurious. Minho pressed his face against the tinted windows, momentarily distracted by the novelty. Jae-sung drove while Seo-jun and Haun sat in tense silence. Why did you run? Seo-jun asked quietly. You know why. Tell me anyway. Haun glanced at Minho, who was occupied with the window controls. I found out I was pregnant 4 weeks after you. After that night. The doctor said it was impossible, but my hormone levels didn't lie. And you didn't tell me because? Because you believed you were sterile. Haun's voice was sharp with old pain. If I'd shown up pregnant, what would you have thought? That I was lying? Trying to trap you? That it was another man's child? Seo-jun had no answer. They both knew Ha-eun was right. You treated me like a transaction, Ha-eun continued. Left money and walked away. Why would I trust you with the most precious thing in my life? So you stole 3 years from me instead. I protected my son from a man who would have destroyed us both. They stared at each other, 3 years of hurt and anger crackling between them. Minho's voice broke the tension. Are you fighting about me? Both adults turned to the child. His expression was far too knowing, far too hurt. The kids at school say their papas fight about them sometimes, Minho said quietly. Before they split up. Are you going to split up too? We're not together, baby, Ha-eun said gently. But you could be. Minho looked at Seo-jun with desperate hope. Right? If you're my other papa? Seo-jun's throat worked. Minho, I need to know something first. Can I ask you a question? The child nodded. Do you want me to be your papa? Yes. No hesitation. Papa says you're on a business trip, but I think he's lying. I think you didn't know about me. The emotional intelligence in that statement made Seo-jun's chest tighten. This child, his child, he knew it in his bones, was extraordinary. You're very smart, Seo-jun said. I know. Minho's confidence was pure Seo-jun. So are you my papa or not? I'd like to be. But your papa and I need to figure some things out first. Would you forgive someone who mistook your pain for love? Comment below. The car pulled up to Seo-jun's building. Ha-eun's stomach dropped. The same penthouse where everything had started and ended. You said 10 minutes in the car, Ha-eun protested. I lied. Seo-jun opened the door. We're doing this properly. With proof. Seo-jun. Either walk involuntarily or my security carries you. Choose. Ha-eun wanted to fight. But Minho was already climbing out, excited by the tall building and luxury he'd never experienced. They rode the elevator in silence. Minho held both their hands, swinging between them like this was normal, like they were a family instead of strangers bound by biology and broken promises. The penthouse looked the same. Ha-eun's throat tightened with memories, standing by these windows, sleeping in that guest room, waking to cash and devastation. Wow, Minho breathed, running to the windows. Papa, look. We're so high. Seo-jun watched the child with an expression Ha-eun couldn't read. Then he pulled out his phone. Dr. Choi? I need you at my penthouse immediately. Bring paternity testing equipment. He paused. Yes, now. Ha-eun's hands clenched. You can't force this. Watch me. Seo-jun's eyes were steel. 3 years, Ha-eun. You kept my potential son from me for 3 years. I'm not waiting another day. He's not yours. Then the test will prove it, and you can leave. Seo-jun stepped closer, voice dropping. But if he is mine, we're having a very different conversation. The doctor arrived within 20 minutes, a nervous woman in her 50s carrying a medical bag. She took one look at Minho and Seo-jun standing together and blinked in surprise. The resemblance is remarkable, she murmured. Just do the test, Seo-jun ordered. Dr. Choi was gentle with Minho, explaining the cheek swab like it was a game. The child cooperated with the same fearless curiosity he approached everything. Results in 2 hours with a rapid test, Dr. Choi said. I'll process it in my lab downstairs. After she left, silence fell heavy. Minho explored the penthouse, running from room to room with delighted exclamations. Ha-eun and Seo-jun stood on opposite sides of the living room like boxers in their corners. What if he is mine? Seo-jun asked quietly. Then nothing changes. We leave, and you forget we exist. Absolutely not. You don't get a say. Ha-eun's voice shook. You gave that up when you paid me and left. I was terrified. The admission escaped before Seo-jun could stop it. That night, what we shared, it wasn't supposed to mean anything. I wasn't supposed to feel. Feel what? Seo-jun's jaw worked. Everything. You made me feel everything, and I didn't know how to handle it. So you treated me like a whore. The word landed like a slap. Seo-jun flinched. Yes, he said quietly. I did. And I've regretted it every day since. Ha-eun laughed bitterly. You expect me to believe that? I searched for you. 6 months of every resource I had trying to find where you'd gone. I thought, Seo-jun's voice cracked. I thought maybe you were dead. That something had happened, and it was my fault for driving you away. The confession hung between them. Ha-eun wanted to dismiss it as manipulation, but the raw pain in Seo-jun's voice was too real. If you cared so much, why the money? Why the coldness? Because caring terrified me more than any business deal or underground threat ever had. Seo-jun met his eyes. Because I'm very good at being ruthless and very bad at being human. Before Ha-eun could respond, Minho ran back in. Papa, there's a room with toys. Can I play? That was, Seo-jun's voice caught. That was my room. When I was young. Minho's eyes went wide. Really? Really? Seo-jun knelt to his level again. Would you like to see? The child grabbed his hand trustingly. Seo-jun looked at Haun, silently asking permission. Haun nodded numb. He watched them disappear down the hall, his son's small hand in Seo-jun's larger one, their identical gray eyes bright with tentative connection. Haun sank onto the sofa and let himself feel it. 3 years of running, of lies, of protecting Minho from a truth that might destroy them both. All unraveling in a single afternoon. Dr. Choi returned exactly 2 hours later. Her expression was carefully neutral as she entered the penthouse. Minho had fallen asleep in the toy room, exhausted by excitement. Haun carried him to the sofa, cradling his son protectively. Results? Seo-jun demanded. Dr. Choi pulled out her tablet. Before I share them, I need to explain something about your medical history, Mr. Kong. I know my history. Just tell me if he's mine. The poison you were exposed to 6 years ago, it didn't make you sterile. Dr. Choi pulled up genetic charts. It made your reproductive system hyperselective. Your body can only create viable offspring with a genetic match of extraordinary compatibility. Seo-jun's hands clenched. What kind of compatibility? We're talking 1 in 50 million genetic markers. Your DNA and Mr. Lee's DNA form a perfect complementary match. It's why the child exists when it shouldn't. Your bodies were designed to create this specific genetic combination. Designed by who? Haun asked weakly. Evolution. Fate. Random chance elevated to biological imperative. Dr. Choi looked between them. Whatever you want to call it, the result is the same. You two are genetically destined to produce offspring together. Seo-jun's voice was barely audible. The paternity result. Dr. Choi turned the tablet toward them. 99.9% match. Kong Minho is definitively your biological son, Mr. Kong. The world stopped. Haun stared at the numbers, the genetic proof of what he'd always known but never said aloud. Minho was Seo-jun's miracle, the child that shouldn't exist, born from one night of desperate connection. Seo-jun made a sound like something breaking. He pressed his hand over his mouth, eyes locked on the sleeping child. 3 years, he whispered. I have a son. For 3 years I've had a son. Had you known, what would you have done? Haun's voice was hollow. Really? What would you have done if I'd shown up pregnant, claiming it was yours when every doctor said you were sterile? Seo-jun had no answer. They both knew the truth. You would have accused me of lying, Haun continued. Of trying to trap you. Of carrying another man's child and using your guilt to extort money. You would have destroyed me. Yes, Seo-jun admitted. I would have. Because I'm a monster who doesn't trust anyone, who assumes the worst of everyone, who, his voice broke, who drove away the only person who ever made me feel human, and then spent 3 years mourning them. The confession hung raw and honest between them. Dr. Choi quietly excused herself. The door clicked shut, leaving them alone with their son and the weight of revealed truth. I hate you, Haun whispered, for making me feel worthless, for treating our child like a transaction before he was even born. I know. I hate that Minho looks like you. That every day I see your face and remember how you made me feel both precious and disposable in the same night. I know. Seo-jun's voice cracked. And I hate that part of me still. Haun choked on the words. That part of me still wanted you to search. To find us. To prove I meant something beyond money and convenience. Seo-jun crossed the distance between them and dropped to his knees. The ruthless CEO, the feared underground king, kneeling on his penthouse floor before the Omega he'd destroyed. I did search, Seo-jun said. For 6 months I tore Seoul apart trying to find you. I hired investigators, tracked security footage, threatened every contact I had. When I finally accepted you were gone, I became something worse than I was before. Haun's eyes burned. That doesn't fix what you did. I know. Nothing fixes it. Seo-jun looked up at him, gray eyes raw with regret. But I'm begging you anyway. Not for forgiveness. I don't deserve that. For a chance. To know my son. To prove I can be more than the monster you met. Why should I believe you? Because I'm on my knees. Seo-jun's voice broke completely. Because I'm the man who never kneels, never begs, never shows weakness. And I'm doing all 3 for a chance to be Minho's father. Haun looked at Seo-jun kneeling before him, at their son sleeping peacefully on the sofa, at the impossible situation that biology and fate had created. I can't forgive you, Haun said finally. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I understand. But Minho deserves to know his father. The real version. Not the fantasy I've been telling him. Seo-jun's breath caught. What are you saying? Supervised visits. You see him with me present. You prove you can be trusted, that you won't hurt him the way you hurt me. Haun's voice was steel-wrapped in pain. One mistake, one moment of treating him like property instead of a person, and we disappear. Permanently. Deal. Seo-jun said it instantly, desperately. And you tell him the truth. About everything. Age-appropriate but honest. I will. And you, Haun's voice broke. You don't get to touch me. Look at me like that night meant something. We're co-parents, nothing more. The words wounded them both. Seo-jun nodded, throat working. Minho stirred on the sofa, blinking awake. He saw Seo-jun kneeling by Haun and smiled with devastating innocence. Are you asking Papa to marry you? He asked sleepily. My friend's Papa did that. He got on his knees and everything. The adults froze. Seo-jun looked at Haun with desperate hope and careful restraint. Not quite, Haun managed. Oh. Minho sat up, looking between them. Are you my Papa now? He asked Seo-jun. If you want me to be. I do. Minho climbed off the sofa and hugged Seo-jun impulsively. I always wanted two papas. Seo-jun wrapped his arms around his son for the first time, eyes closing as if committing every detail to memory. The weight of him, the warmth, the impossibility made real. Haun watched them and felt his heart crack open, grief and hope and fear tangling into something unbearable. Have you ever loved again after loss? Share your story in the comments. 6 weeks later, Haun sat on the edge of Minho's bed, watching Seo-jun teach their son to tie his shoes. The penthouse had become their strange middle ground, neither home nor prison, but something cautiously hopeful. Loop, then through, then pull, Seo-jun demonstrated patiently. Minho's tongue stuck out in concentration. Like this. Perfect. The child beamed with pride. Seo-jun looked up at Haun, silently asking, did I do okay? Haun nodded. Small progress. Tentative trust being built one moment at a time. Can we watch a movie now? Minho asked. All three of us? If your papa says yes, Seo-jun said carefully. Always deferring to Haun's authority, never overstepping. 30 minutes, then bed, Haun agreed. They settled on the sofa, Minho between them, animated movie playing on the enormous screen. The child's eyes grew heavy within minutes, his head drooping onto Seo-jun's shoulder. Seo-jun looked at Haun over their sleeping son. Thank you, he mouthed. For what? Haun wanted to ask. For the child you didn't know existed? For letting you try to be human? But he saw the answer in Seo-jun's eyes. For everything. For mercy when Seo-jun deserved none. For hope when both had lost it. Minho mumbled in his sleep. Love you, papas. Both adults froze. Neither had taught him that, to include them both, to claim them equally. I love you too, Seo-jun whispered, voice breaking. Haun closed his eyes against tears. They weren't a family. Not yet. Maybe never. But sitting here with their miracle child between them, the impossible made real. Maybe someday. Minho stirred, looked up at them with sleepy gray eyes. Are you going to kiss? My friend says that's what papas do when they love each other. Haun's breath caught. Seo-jun's eyes held carefully banked hope and desperate restraint. Someday maybe, Haun said quietly. If we learn to trust each other again. Okay. Minho smiled and snuggled deeper between them. I can wait. And in the soft lamplight of Seo-jun's penthouse, with their impossible son sleeping peacefully, two broken people began the slow, uncertain work of becoming whole.